join me in welcoming Amit Mukim.
Good morning. Before I start, I think we all deserve, more than anything else, to give a much more energetic round of applause for ma'am's speech. If there's any recording, Madan, I would love to have it and play it to my team, because this kind of a talk actually reinforces hope in all who are trying to build some of the most difficult challenges that are out there. Ma'am, thank you. So when Madan and his team invited me to speak on this, and thank you for having me here, was really how at every stage in our life, we are thinking about innovation. Is innovation an idea? Is it a way to realize a dream? Or is it really trying to solve problems that people can't fathom can be solved at all? Let me start with a story. About 15 years ago, there was a girl who was diagnosed with late-stage blood cancer. She had gone through all the treatments, and the doctors finally recommended a particular therapy that was very new, very novel, had not been tried ever in the past, which required her blood to be genetically modified and infused back into her to actually fight the cancer cells. Her name was Emily Whitehead. Emily is now 20 years old, has remained cancer-free. But her journey actually inspired a completely new way of bringing innovation in healthcare, which was cell and gene therapy. And why I say this to you is because when we look at deep tech, when we look at AI, when we look at everything else that is happening, one of the areas that we require innovation to happen most is actually building health at the individual level for the patients. Because each patient is unique, their background is unique, their genetic structure is unique, and we cannot adopt a one-size-fits-all. And in the world that will come forward in the next few decades, you will truly see the power of deep tech, AI, technology, data, and understanding of the human physiology and understanding of everything that impacts the human body to actually transform into a completely different way in which we will be faced with health offerings, with doctors, with treatments, with our own understanding of how we will treat ourselves. I've been very grateful to be part of a movement called TIE. I started as a volunteer about 15 years ago, ushering in people into what used to be called a TIE Entrepreneurship Summit. The only objective to have done that selfishly was at some point I wanted to feel the energy of an entrepreneur. Cut to the opportunity that came in front of me about a year ago was to bring in cell and gene therapy into India. So at Immunil Therapeutics, a company which now I'm part of, we are trying to build innovative and yet affordable disruptive cell and gene therapies. And why I use all of these three words is because today close to 50 to 60,000 patients have been treated with what we call CAR-T, which is CAR-T, chimeric receptor antigen therapy, which modifies genetically the blood cells and treats aggressive blood cancers, last stage cancers, where patients have 6 to 8 weeks to live. And we are confident that as we will move forward, we will see a complete revolution in personalized medicine that will happen. And as a country, we need to take leaps, if not steps, in catching up and even moving forward in this field because of two reasons. We have the largest burden of autoimmune disorders and cancer in this country. And the second is that if we don't do it, we will never be able to offer it at the prices that global biopharma charge for it across the world. So one infusion of this therapy actually costs a little under $1 million in the US. We've already brought the cost down of this therapy by 95%. Our objective is to bring it down to 99% of what the cost is. Because that's the only way we will be able to create a model that is for India and from India. In this journey, I think there are 3 or 4 things we are realizing, and which is why it's so important to share it with whoever's trying to build innovation in India. One, a lot of groundbreaking innovation requires patient capital. It requires a lot of upfront investment, and it requires the ability to go through experiments that will go wrong. All of that, as it says that it needs a village to raise a child, it really needs a village to foster that innovation. And that village needs to include the support of the government, the support of institutions that can support it financially, because there will be years before some of this innovation will come through. The support of the broader institutional framework to allow the innovation to foster and not kill it before it sees the light of day. And then the support of the engine to make this accessible. Today, I have to share with you that there are thousands of companies, startups across India who are trying to work through very, very novel technologies and therapies. The challenges they face are as follows. The equipment that they need to conduct the experiments run into crores of rupees. They can't afford to buy those equipments themselves. When we talk about incubation, when we talk about some of these centers really have to invest and support bringing in some of this equipment to be able to offer the facility and infrastructure for some of these startups to do these experiments. They can't afford it themselves. And if they buy some of this equipment, they will be below water before they even start with the funding they have. I think the second, we need to realize that the world is changing faster than we think. And the regulatory framework to drive innovation in India cannot be just a framework to work through what could go wrong, but to enable how we can scale and adopt the best practices to bring innovation rapidly into the country. A lot of innovation actually sits outside the world, outside the country. And I think the 2 things we have gathered is, one, if we can even combine our know-how, our ability to scale and think frugal and adapt some of that innovation into India, we can create very novel solutions for India. We don't have to start from scratch. But for that, we have to position ourselves to gain the confidence to bring the innovation into the country, protect the intellectual property, and be able to actually do justice to people who have created that innovation outside the world while we are doing our own. And the last point being, today India is one of the few countries which I see today, if we look at the number of trials that are going on in cell and gene therapy, there are close to 2,400 trials. 800 of them are happening in China. There are 60 happening in India. Right? For one of the world's largest populations, we can't afford to be so behind. Because the data that we deal with is mission critical data. We are dealing with genetic data. We have to build our own self-sufficiency and actually to be able to create the treatments and therapies that our people need. And for that, we need patient capital. Unfortunately, what I see in India is there's a lot of capital available where you can do a multiplication of the number of consumers and what is called TAM, total addressable market. And everybody then chases the capital, right? There are very few people who truly understand innovation, what risk-taking means, and to back that with a strong sense of purpose and belief, and then to enable the scientists to actually really create something novel. And that's what I think my call to action would be, that even while there is billions of capital available, I think the pool of capital available to drive true innovation is going to be the enabler to the ecosystem we want to build. It's not that we've not taken steps in the country. For many of you who are from Bangalore, I think we built a beautiful biotechnology hub on the way to the airport, which is CCamp, right? Which houses almost a third, if not more, of India's cell and gene therapy startups. And that's what we need, because some of the scientists, some of the innovators who come and work in even companies like ours are from across the world. Today, of my team of 25 people, actually there are 13 returning Indians from the US who've come back to actually give back to the country because they feel passionate about the cause. We need to create more forums and organizations where we can attract the talent back And the talent will only come back and do disruptive innovation when they believe that this innovation will see the light of the day. So we need to enable all of it. But at the core of it, we need to believe that as a country, actually we can solve some of the world's most complex problems, and we have the ability to solve it in a way that is scalable beyond the belief of individuals. So the problem, for example, we are trying to solve, where we brought this cost of therapy down by almost 90% today, is to treat hundreds and hundreds of patients who are potentially on the last stage of cancer or autoimmune disorders like lupus and SLE. The West doesn't think like that. The West prices a particular therapy based on a small pool of patients they feel that could be addressed, which is why sickle cell, if you have heard of it, costs $2 million for one infusion of gene therapy. Why can't it cost $5,000? It's because the way in which the pricing is done is only on thinking through how many people can afford it, rather than thinking how many people can need it. The way the entire cost structure is done is to think through how can I source from where I am in the West, rather than thinking how can I really think through frugal manufacturing and manufacturing at scale. Today, we have the opportunity to build some of the global supply chains in cell and gene therapy from India. But that requires a very different form of thinking, because we can manufacture some of the vectors that cost thousands of dollars in the West at a few $100s. We have the scientists, we have the facilities, we have the know-how. But that will take time. That will take years to build, but that will take also a mindset that we are building for the future and not building for now. So I think if we have to foster an innovation ecosystem, I think we have to think through what we are building for the future. We have to move that mindset through. And we have to think through what problems we can solve at scale and for India and from India. I'd love to share my experiences with any of you, because for us, this journey has been that of shaping what healthcare will look like in the next 10 to 15 years. We need many more with us. It's a few companies that have started this journey at a commercial scale. In India, we started to treat patients for lymphoma right now. But I think this tribe will increase. And as this tribe will increase, we will need to really think through how we move ahead of every country in the world to actually not only treat patients, but create a hub to do more science, do more innovation. Because if that shift happens, then I think everything else will follow. So that, to me, is the biggest shift that we need to do. Thank you for having me here, Madan. It's been a pleasure, and all the best.